Hi, my name is Shari Doherty, and I'm a lady in red, in Act 2 of my career and living my best life. My perspective on life and behaviors have been governed by who I was as a child, who I became, and who I am still striving to be. People my age are beautiful, bold, confident, and full of wisdom, and truly, the encore of the story of your life is still when the best songs are yet to be sung. My mission in this podcast is to shine the spotlight on people like me, have real conversations about reinvention stories, and inspire you to continue to follow your dreams regardless of your age. I'm doing it for Daisy. Who are you doing it for? Good day and welcome to today's episode of the Encore podcast. Today, I am delighted to have with me a new friend, Pamela Sylvan, and she is a threshold crossing strategist and advisor. So right there, I wanted to know more and find out what that means to be a threshold crossing strategist. Welcome to the show, Pamela.
Well, thank you, Shari. I am thrilled to be in front of your audience today to explain something probably a little bit unique to many people hearing it. So this will be a fun half hour.
Absolutely. So, as with all of our guests, if you will, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you were born and raised, what life was like, and particularly any highlights or lowlights that you're comfortable to share?
Absolutely. I'm currently on the road. I'm a van lifer, and I'm sure we would eventually get to that. But I just want to do a little bit of backtracking a little bit.
Sure.
So I'm on the road full time, mostly van lifing and homesteading the other part of the year. And prior to that, I was a city girl. Grew up in Toronto, went to school in Toronto, did everything in Toronto, got married, had my child, moved to the Eastern Corridor in Belleville, Ontario,
Okay.
raised my child there, and that's when life started to get a little bit wonky for me into that midlife period of my life and decided that things had to change up a little bit. And the reason for that is the spirituality in me sort of kicked in. And this was in my 30s. This is when my child was very young. And I decided, you know what? Something was going on and I had to investigate it a little bit.
Interesting. Okay. If you want to jump into that, that sounds like where the meat's probably going to be. So please go on.
The meat and potatoes, exactly. So the marriage was fine by all accounts. Looking from the outside in, it was all great. Had the beautiful home, the backyard with the big pool. Everything was going as it should. You know how we go and we get married, we have the child, we start collecting all the symbols of success, status, and so forth. So the check marks kept going. Yet inside, something was off. I was continually sick, continually in the hospital.
Oh,
the I sort of had a bus pass for the ambulance, it seemed like. But what was going on? It was a spiritual, to me, it was a spiritual attack. Now, we did all the tests, the medical, we did all the medical things, the tests, the MRIs, the scans, all of it. And thankfully, nothing was found. Yet something was still going on. And I knew exactly what was happening on my last foray into emergency coming through on the ambulance. And as the doctors and nurses were flurrying around me trying to save my life, I didn't have an out of body experience per se, but it came to my awareness like a drop in a pond, and it all rippled out what the problem was. I wasn't doing the thing I was meant to do. I wasn't proceeding through to the thing I was built to do. Now, what was that? What does that even mean
right.
if you're listening to this? We all have a call. We all have that something more, that whisper that pokes and tugs at us, but we put it off to the side because we are quote unquote living our life. We are living the job, we're living the house, we're living the relationship, we're doing all of those supposed things that we're supposed to be about. Now, some of us are really affected by this call. And I was also one of those pushing it aside because what does that even mean? I'm doing the thing that my parents sent me to school to do, the thing that my friends were doing, the thing that my peer group was doing. This other thing was nonsense. Nobody had time for that, I said. Now, in this beautiful home, I had this amazing dressing room full of clothes, full of all of the accoutrement, if you want, in this beautiful dressing room. And I found myself increasingly going into that beautiful dressing room, shutting the door, and drinking sherry ad nauseum. I mean, quietly by myself drinking. And
Okay.
not even a drinker per se, but here I was doing this thing. I was masking and pushing down and numbing what was happening internally, as many of us do, because we want to quiet that still voice. And we talk about that still small voice within us. But if that voice is diametrically different to how you're living your life, this is where this sort of dissonance becomes flying through us, and we call it the crisis. The
Okay.
crisis, the crisis is supposed to happen, but we push it back.
Right.
It's supposed to happen. It is the call. It is the awakening,
Mhm.
if you will. So, anyways, I sat in this dressing room drinking one day and looked around at all these beautiful brand name clothes, and I got garbage bags. I had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. And I thought the way to deal with it is to package up all of these clothes and boots and shoes and handbags and give it all away. And that's what I did. But that was just the starting of the dismantling of my life.
What,
Fast,
curious, what did your husband have to say about that?
oh, he was oblivious to all of this. He was too busy stuck in his life and in sports on the TV. He was totally oblivious to what was going on with me.
Okay.
So my daughter did notice, and she was young, and because she asked me, Mom, how come you don't smile anymore? So
Oh,
she saw what I couldn't hide or mask anymore. All
right.
right. So
Mhm.
when she said that to me, I knew that there was an issue at hand and I could not, for the life of me, figure this thing out.
Oh,
Now, I was around 40-ish by this point, early 40s when this high drama began with me. I also knew that my marriage was no longer fulfilling me. I felt abandoned in the relationship. But again, as we good women do, we did the gardening. I did all of these things to make it look like it was okay.
right.
But I wasn't okay. So I had stuffed myself into a story that was literally trying to kill me. So before I left that hospital, that scene I just told you about,
Yeah.
I made a vow to life. And I said, if I'm allowed to leave this time, I will do what is necessary to change my life.
Wow.
And as I left the hospital a day later, the nurse said to me, people that come in here with those numbers that you were rolled in with don't leave. They either pass away or they have a massive stroke, something happens. It's it's a miracle practically that you're walking out. Now, I had a massive headache, but I walked out. And I
Amazing.
walked with a promise and a vow that I would change my life. Now, you get out, the crisis is down, so you think, oh, you're just being silly and foolish. You don't have to dismantle anything. Just get on with it, Pamela. Buckle up. Well, I couldn't buckle up. 2 days into this, I had another issue, not a health crisis, but something happened in my home where there was a tiny little death. Now, you're going to laugh when you hear it. I had this fish on a fishbowl on my beautiful fridge that was sort of like my companion called Blue, and
Okay.
it should not have lived that long. It's one of those fish that should lives 2 weeks and it dies type of thing. It had it for months, almost a year. I came back in and the bowl was gone. Asked my husband, whose face was glued into the TV, what happened. He said, "Oh, it died and we got rid of it." And I knew then it was like a little signal from life. I knew
Right.
then that if I didn't make true to the vow that I had given, I too will end up like this fish. So without even taking my jacket off, I said, I can't do this anymore. I packed up and I left with nothing.
Oh boy.
Okay. I didn't even care about things or stuff. And my own mom asked, what about the silverware? Bless
That's
her
an
heart.
interesting question.
But you see, women of that time, it was about the stuff and
Yep.
how it looked and the show. And so I understand the crazy question, but I, for me, that was the last thing I cared about. And I told her, you can keep it, babysit it for me until I'm ready for it, which I never was again.
Right.
My point being, at that moment in time, getting the entirety of me back was more important than the things I could have carried out the door with me that day. The fight wasn't about stuff or status. The fight at that point was a spiritual fight for me to reclaim the parts of me that I had to stuff down, numb out, constrain, all of it, And I knew that was the job at hand. And people ask me all the time, Pamela, how did you just go out into the unknown with nothing? And I said, because I believe the stories that I grew up hearing. And I was even telling people, we talk about faith, we talk about belief. I have the sign up behind me. We
Yep.
talk about all these things, but we don't act in accordance to the belief. And I'm not talking about religiosity here. That's not even part of my ethos. It's about a firm belief in self that we can handle what comes at us, but we don't believe it. We don't act as if. And now, if I may sort of jump ahead a little bit here,
I'm
now,
enthralled, so please keep going.
now, as somebody that helps women in this particular time of life, and the women that I usually work with are around that 60 to 75 age corridor. And it's an important one. And here's why. There's a huge conversation going on right now around midlife.
Yep.
And it's around the 40, 50-year-old demographic. And that's great. They're talking about menopause, bodily changes, hormones, bone density, all of these things that they didn't really have time to think about in their younger years because they were busy accumulating and raising families. Okay, I get that. Now, as your children are growing, they don't need you on 24/7 like they used to, or they're just altogether gone. Maybe your career has changed, ratcheted down, or you've already retired. What are you doing? This is the time that you actually switch on. And what do I mean by that? Sounds so mysterious, Pamela. Explain that. You switch on to what you were built for. We are all built to do something. And I don't mean you're off to lead the world.
Right.
Absolutely not. You can if you want to. But that's not what I'm specifically referring to. Built for what? And you see, that's the question. We have never had the time or the inclination to actually know thyself.
Right.
Know your likes, your dislikes, know how you fit into the thread and fabric of life, universe, society at large, if you will, and really start to believe. I was able to cross the thresholds that I've crossed. And since leaving my marriage, many thresholds crossed across the country alone, nowhere to live, no furniture, just two bags of clothes and my laptop. Came to the western part of the country. I didn't know anybody. I had no employment waiting for me. I had no place to live. And I did it anyway. And I was 50 years old
Wow.
at
Good
the
for
I
you.
did at
Applause.
a time of life, thank you. At a time of life where most women are settling down to all that they've done and acquired. They're becoming grandmothers, and here's me with two bags of clothes trying to figure out what's next. But here's what I knew as I did this. I knew that I had spent all of my adult life building for other people, mainly employers.
Right.
I knew what I carried within me. I knew what I carried within my heart. I knew what I carried within my brain. All of these things were my package. All of these things were what built me. So, what was I going to do with that? So, it was like a litmus test for me. I went to work. I landed on the ground in Victoria. I walked around a little bit, found my place near to the ocean. I always wanted to live near the ocean, and I found it. It was like specifically prepared for me to show up and just say, boom, went through all the checks and balances. I got the call 3 days later. It was mine. So
Wonderful.
one thing care. Now I moved into an empty place. I had to find a cup and a glass and a pillow and a bed. Gradually, all these things came into my being. But what was next? And I said, okay, what do I know to do? And it clicked into my brain. You know how to communicate, you know how to write, you know how to gather people. So I started a magazine, an online magazine called Downtown and Around. And that magazine allowed me to meet all the people who had opinions and people that led and all of these things in Victoria, and they all came to know me, from the mayor, the police chief, everybody of note who was. And I made friends, and I started holding my own events for women, and it just grew from there. So the point of this story that I'm sharing right now is the fear that we walk around with about not knowing what to do or how it's going to happen. You've done this through the course of your life if you're a woman. You have created something out of nothing. You've created human beings.
Right?
You
Yes.
have you have raised beings and put them out into the world. You have shopped, you have cleaned, you have dressed, you have comforted, you have nurtured, you have all the prerequisites, including your education if you went through that, your job skills if you went through that. All of these things were the breadcrumbs of your life. I took all of my breadcrumbs and I put it to use, and I have grown what I have grown. Now, and before my mother passed away, my pastor mom, before she passed away, she turned and asked me, how do you do that? And I asked, what do you mean? She says, you don't go to church. And I said, my church is everywhere that I go.
Hmm.
It's everywhere I go, is what everybody talks about on Sunday. I live it and I see it. She says, I want you to teach me the things that you know. What she was asking is, how do I live the narrative that we talk about yet don't do?
Interesting. Really
How,
interesting.
yes, where does that belief and trust come from? It's a knowingness I connected to, and that knowingness I connected to happened right before I got married. Something in my spirit said, hey, it's been poking at me forever. I really wasn't listening until the collapse of my life started. And I took the opportunity while I was in this sort of liminal space, tumbling through the void, don't know where to go with my little two bags and my laptop. That was an opportunity because I didn't have anything else to focus on except the rebuilding of my life. And I called in the powers and the energy of creation and creativity. And next thing you know, here I am living the type of lifestyle I've always imagined.
So, what is that? Please tell us because your lifestyle is so interesting.
As I briefly shared in the beginning of this conversation, I'm a van lifer, meaning that my partner and I, 6 months out of the year, we drive across the country when the weather changes in the east into fall and winter. We get in the van and we drive across the country until we find ourselves on Vancouver Island. And this country, for those of us that are in this country in Canada here, we have the most epic country ever, and we never really see it because we jump on airplanes and go elsewhere.
Right.
Until you have the opportunity to drive end to end to see the various changing landscapes, you haven't seen Canada. It really is something. I didn't even know we had something called the Badlands in Alberta until I actually got there and saw it. I'm thinking, I always thought that kind of thing was down in the US, but it's here too. But it's never really talked about or shared. So
I've heard
half the
of
year,
it, never been there.
it's amazing. A lot of dinosaur bones are being, that's a big dinosaur area, actually.
Interesting.
And in Drumheller, they have the dinosaur museums, very world famous, a UNESCO site, but again, it's nothing that we're taught as Canadians. So the other half of our year is in Nova Scotia. We bought property there. So we're on a lake, so we have a private beach. Again, nothing that was in my sights the day I picked up my two bags of clothes and left. Now, a little bit of backpedal. When I left the marital home, nothing I had my car, that's all I had, and a bag of some clothes, I guess, that I took.
Right.
And I went to my mom's for 2 weeks until I got my own place. And then when I was in this new place that I called home, I looked outside. I was in downtown. I was in downtown Belleville. You remember what downtown Belleville looked like at the
Mhm.
time. And I said, this place needs some PR. So I went down to the newspaper place, the Belleville Intelligencer, and I said, I need a column. I need to talk about this thing. And they gave me a column, and I became the downtown gal. And I wrote about downtown every Friday for 4 years until it became something for the council to fight over and talk about. And the next thing you know, the downtown core went through a rejuvenation.
It
It
has.
wasn't
Yeah.
I left, I left it a lot differently than I met it. I don't take full credit for it. Other people had to come in, but somebody had to start the momentum and the conversation and the disagreements and just get some energy flowing. That is my gift. I start the conversations. I bring the energy. I bring the thinking. I see what's needed. I make the phone calls. I make it happen. That's my gift. And now I've taken it and brought it to these women in this particular 10 to 15-year runway because I'm in that runway time. I am in my 60s and I have the vitality and strength and the lived experience, the knowledge. So I've written books about this. I've created a whole IP about it, over 600 pages of information about this particular time of a woman's life. This is what actually the world needs. It needs the women in this time. We have the time, we have the education, we have the resources, we've got the grit, we've got the gravitas. It's just about putting some structure around it because no one's ever talked to you like that.
Preach, sister. Preach. 100. I am behind you, and I agree with you 100%. I might call it a little different wording. I call it the Encore season. However, 100% alignment with what we're working on together. So I love this. Talk to us about Elder School. I want to know more about that.
Absolutely. Elder school is an opportunity to experience yourself differently for the first time because you come out of the narratives that you've lived most of your adult life, either marriage, full-time mom, career, what have you. And maybe you've just come out of being a caretaker for your parents. Both my parents are now gone, so I'm a senior orphan at this point. So what happens next? Who are our models? What do we do with ourselves? Right? There's no graduation into this time of life. This is the time women are expected to just sort of fade away. You get your first gray hair or first wrinkle, and that's it for you, type of thing, right? I actually wrote an article called Wrinkles that's on my Substack that talks about women's skin being weaponized either through the patriarchy or through capitalism. But I wrote a huge article about that. It's quite fascinating. So we don't have anyone to actually have this particular elderhood conversation. We equate elder with massive decline, massive health issues, and basically the next step for you is either an elder care facility and then, of course, death. So, what happens between that time? So, I've taken it upon myself to create a space for women to come into community because, women like community, to
Yep.
come into community and learn together and grow together so we can go outward with what we now are conscious of. So I have three 30-day crossings, three 30-day journeys. And you can take them separately, but they are stackable. They're meant to take you from here to over there. And the reason I did it, and it's not some ongoing thing, is because I want people to focus. People can focus for 30 days, I think, right? So we focus on what that module is about. The first one is the unholy trinity: fear, rejection, and failure. The three things that we battle the entirety of our life in some form or fashion. I don't care if you're in the C-suite, but you're working for somebody. When you're working for yourself or you're on behalf of yourself, these things come rushing at you because there's a foundation thought to all of these spaces. So we take them through 30 days of uncovering and dissolving that.
Okay.
The next 30 days is about the blocks, the purity conversation and narrative that was inculcated into us females, the permission based thinking that stops us and your peers stop you. And we work through that. And the final 30 days is about the 12 elder laws, the 12 elder laws that actually, they're like triggers that light you up, that light up this time of your life now that you're ready. But I will add a caveat to this. This type of training is for women who are ready. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a clinician.
Right.
I'm women that need that kind of help or service, I point them that way. I work with women who are ready to go because how I work, it's we're ready to go.
Yep. Let's do this. I love this season. I know you know that we've talked at length before this and even now, but you know that I love this season. This so far is my favorite season of life. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so excited, which is fantastic. And I love your alignment and everything that you're doing. Is there anything you wanted to share that we didn't get to? Because there's just so much in you and your story, but is there any story you'd like to tell or anything you'd like to highlight before we kind of wrap up with a couple of final questions?
I think it's pretty straightforward. I think at this point, I just want the women that's in your audience to know about the 10 to 15-year runway, I call it. And the 10 to 15-year runway is the amount of time and energy and vitality you still have. Like I said, I'm in my 60s, and when I get to 90, which will be 20 something years out, do I want to be doing this? Probably not. Will I have the energy to do it? Who knows? But I know for the next at least 10 to 15, I will be this that you see and hear. So this is my third time or act, some people call it, to really pour everything I've got into what it is I'm being, creating, and of course, becoming.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to know more?
Oh, they can just go right to my name, PamelaSylvan.com, and it takes you to all places that I am.
Okay, wonderful. And I like to ask everyone if you could talk to little girl Pamela, what's the one thing you would tell her?
I would tell her, girl, you got some things coming up. All that you are experiencing is for a reason. Hang on, hang tight, and you'll see it come to pass.
I feel like we could use that advice at any time in our lives. I could have probably told my 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, even 40-year-old self, girl, there's so much coming. Just keep going and keep swimming, as they like to say. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing all your wisdom. I can just see it exuding from you, and you give off such a positive energy and a big smile and lots of joy. So I do encourage our listeners to look you up and get in touch. There's so much more that I know you have to offer. I really appreciate your time today. And for our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, I would highly encourage you to subscribe. We have future episodes coming out on a regular basis, and share this with a friend who might need to hear this message.